Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm at my parents' house for the weekend, and this is my December 2017 book haul. It's kind of a bittersweet book haul for me, I suppose, because all year I've been doing monthly book hauls, but next year I hope to tone it down a bit and only do it for special occasions. It'll still probably be a fair few throughout the year, but not 12. We'll see how it goes. But for December, of course, the majority, or really all of the books that I can lay claim to this month are holiday gifts. So I'll start with the first one I received from my book club's holiday party last week. This is Unorthodox, a memoir about rejecting Hasidim by this woman, Deborah Feldman. I was so excited because we did a white elephant, and so nobody knew what we were going to get exactly. But this book had been on my radar for a while, and I'd been hoping actually maybe to find an audiobook, although I don't think she ever did that. So never found it on audiobook, or at least not at the library. So I'm excited to have a physical copy, and I hope to read it soon because I assume that when my book club meets, they'll assume that maybe we'll all have given each other's books a look. I remember when this book came out a few years ago, I believe the author, Deborah Feldman, was very active on Tumblr, so I'll have to look into that again. And I actually, out of the blue, just read an article about her, I'll have to find too, about where she is now, because this book is a couple of years old, and for a while after she left her sect, she was still in the U.S., but now she's in Berlin. And the article was about how she found that to be a sort of a place that was easier for her to acclimate to, because there's a lot about the Hasidic lifestyle, the fundamentalist, ultra-Orthodox lifestyle that is completely alien to a lot of America, including American Jews, but it's a little easier to explain in Germany, and especially when it comes to Yiddish, and how she had to tone down Yiddish a lot for her audiences in America, whereas Yiddish is a cousin to German, so she doesn't have to do that as much in Germany. So it's interesting and weird how the world changes about Jews and where they feel comfortable. But yeah, I just read a memoir about one of my favorite authors, Tova Mervis, leaving Orthodoxy, but this one will be much different. This is a much more fundamentalist sect. It's not, there's not as much compromise, I don't believe. I believe it's much more, it's abusive, period, whereas the Tova Mervis one wasn't. So I'm very curious. Next I have gifts from my sister and her family. This is a box set of Bronte novels that I looked up online because I wanted a nice set with pretty covers. So yeah, we have Villette, then Wuthering Heights, then Jane Eyre, and then The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, my personal favorites, and I found them all in a box together. And I'm very excited to have a little collection of pretty books, of books that I like by authors who I admire, and I have a floating bookshelf that actually I intend to put these on. It's situated right next to a framed print of a quote by Emily Bronte from Wuthering Heights. And my sister actually got me those framed bookcases for my birthday, so I'm thinking this will have to be the collection dedicated to her on the shelf dedicated to her, to put it in some library terms. And this is the other book that they got me. They were very kind and went directly to my very specific gift list of books that I wanted. This is Jews versus Aliens. It is a collection of short stories edited by Lavi Tidhar and Rebecca Levine. And I think this will come close, or maybe sometimes direct, into answering one of my favorite geeky questions of all time, which is, what would Jews do in space? I suppose sometimes they'll have to go up into space to have the aliens meet with them. So I'll read a little from the back. It says, Lavi Tidhar and Rebecca Levine present 10 brand new stories from the lighthearted to the profound, with authors ranging from Orange Prize winner Naomi Alderman, who won this prize again just recently, now called the Bailey's Prize, but she is, so this book is a little older, but anyway. Ranging from her to the Big Bang Theory writer/producer Eric Kaplan, all asking the eternal question, What happens when the aliens arrive only to encounter Jews? I am just so tickled pink, and I know that I'm going to be reading this for Sci-Fi September next year. Then we have gifts that were kindly gifted to me by my mother. What my mother does, though, is she looks at my very specific gift list and decides that she doesn't like the books that I put on there, and she chooses ones somewhat in the vein of the ones that I liked, but not mine entirely. And so I've always had issues with this because, like so many people on BookTube, I have a massive TBR and a lot of ideas about what I want to read and when I want to read it, and how I'm never going to get to everything that I personally put on my list, much less what other people put on for me. But I think I'm trying to make my peace with this. I mean, first of all, because, you know, it's a dick move to spit in someone's face when they give you a gift, but also because it's good for me to sometimes take more of a risk and not to vet everything that I'm reading right away, and to sometimes take someone else's suggestion, perhaps, which I don't always do. And it's curious because well, the books that I put on my list are often Jewish nonfiction, and so she picks Jewish-themed books for me, and it's curious then what she finds to be appealing to read about Judaism. I've been joined by a cat! I had to do a little bit of a jump cut to allow my father to enter the room to do some stuff. But anyway, I don't know how much we'll see her in the shot, but there she is. This is the book my mother got me, I think, that intrigues me the most. It's called The Genius of Judaism by Bernard Henri Levy. And this is what it's about. It says, "For more than 4 decades, Bernard Henri Levy has been a singular figure on the world stage, one of the great moral voices of our time. Now Europe's foremost philosopher and activist confronts his spiritual roots and the religion that has always inspired and shaped him, but that he has never fully reckoned with. The Genius of Judaism is a breathtaking new vision and understanding of what it means to be a Jew, a vision quite different from the one that we're used to. It's rooted in the Talmudic traditions of argument and conflict rather than the biblical commandments, born out in struggle and study, not in blind observance. At the very heart of the matter is an obligation to the other, to the dispossessed, to the forgotten, an obligation that, as Levy vividly recounts, he has sought to embody over decades of championing lost causes, from Bosnia to Africa's forgotten wars, from Libya to the Kurdish Peshmerga's desperate fight against the Islamic State, a battle raging as we speak. Levy offers a fresh, surprising critique of a new and stealthy form of anti-Semitism on the rise, as well as a provocative defense of Israel from the left. He reveals the overlooked Jewish roots of Western democratic ideals and confronts the current Islamicist threat while intellectually dismantling it. Jews are not a chosen people, Levy explains, but a treasure whose gift must continue to inform moral thinking and courage today. Levy's most passionate book, and in many ways his most personal, The Genius of Judaism is a great, profound, and hypnotic intellectual reckoning, indeed a call to arms by one of the keenest and most insightful writers in the world. I got a little schmaltzy at the end, but I think what appeals to me the most is this focus on the Talmud rather than the Bible as a focus of Judaism, because I think about that a lot. I think about how the Hebrew Bible is so didactic. And my interaction with Judaism tends to be much more about argument and debate and Beit Midrash, the class of study where we argue over texts. And so I'm very curious about that aspect intellectually. I'm I guess a little more iffy, about all of the politics, although I think it probably in a large part aligns with my own politics, my mother's politics, my synagogue's politics. All of this sounded kind of familiar and certainly intriguing to read about. And this is the novel that my mother got me, called Austerlitz by W.G. Sebald. I admit that this author and book aren't really familiar to me, and even though I believe they're pretty popular in their own right, this is a 10th edition reprinting, and the winner of numerous awards. It has a new introduction by James Wood, and so I'll just read what it's about. This 10th anniversary edition of W.G. Sebald's celebrated masterpiece includes a new introduction by acclaimed critic James Wood. Austerlitz is the story of a man's search for the answer to his life's central riddle. A small child, when he comes to England on a kinder transport in the summer of 1939, Jacques Austerlitz is told nothing of his real family by the Welsh Methodist minister, and his wife who raise him. When he's a much older man, fleeting memories return to him, and obeying an instinct he can only dimly understand, Austerlitz follows their trail back to the world he left behind a half-century before. There, faced with the void at the heart of the 20th century Europe, he struggles to rescue his heritage from oblivion. So, maybe I vaguely know of this, but in general, I tend to stay away from some of the most famous of Jewish literature, particularly when it comes to the Holocaust. I think my own personal expertise, such as it is about more contemporary literature. And part of that is because I want to focus more on women and less on the Holocaust. But this does seem to be an important piece of fiction about this subject, and I'm curious to broaden my scope a little bit, and definitely it's a good idea to sometimes dip into the stuff that's been tried and tested by critics and literary thinkers. So, yeah. And it even comes with a bookmark from the Strand, because my mother got these books when she was at a New York vacation, and they went to the Strand and thought about me because I've only been to the Strand once, but I've been taught to squee about it because of Book Riot and because of BookTube, and so I even got a little bit of other paraphernalia from the Strand for the holidays. So that about covers it for me. I'm curious about how you approach being gifted books by other people. I know that we all have different protocols for what we decide to read and who can buy it for us and what have you, but this is where I am now. I actually think next year it came to mind that maybe I should keep an eye out for certain book award lists that appeal to me, that most of the titles appeal to me. And it would mostly then be literary, contemporary fiction then. And I could send that to my mother, and then she can choose from among them. And hopefully then it'll kind of be a middle ground for both of us, because I am very curious about these books, but maybe I want a little more control. Although at the same time, when it comes to this Jewish literature, I really love getting a sort of glimpse into what appeals to her most about Judaism. So it's a definite extra dimension to this whole thing. Anyway, I have a cat who's sick of hearing me talk and wants to get out of here. So Merry Christmas to everyone. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.